stop funding them. Time for you to start taking responsibility.
There's a lot of, like I said, a lot of things that have been covered up. But going back to the Dark Crystal, which is the series that we're talking about, a couple of people have asked, what are we talking about? Netflix, called The Dark Crystal, and it's a Muppet. You have to look at the Muppet show, Muppet movie.
Remember the Muppets? His name was Jim Henson, and Jim Henson did a lot of the
Sesame Street
animated Muppets movies and stuff. Years ago, Jim Henson passed form. One of the major um, um, animated movies years ago, late 80s. Yeah, late 80s, I think it was called The Dark Crystal. And with the Dark Crystal, the crystal implies both crystal, but also is pyramidal. And there's also the shard that caps the mound that's actually like the eye of the pyramid, if you kind of understand that. Even when you look at the astrologers, she has one eye.
Mm-hmm.
So they're talking about the people of the eye. So when you talk about the people of the eye, you're talking Ethiopia. Or that's the people of the eye.
Okay.
Or even when you see the people in the modern hybrid Europeans who are using dark magic, it was blacken an eye, meaning that they're complicated.
How about we would see a lot of these people covering up the?
That's what that is.
They would be covering up.
That's what that is.
Okay.
If you don't know the true history, that you're standing on Egypt, you get it out your mind that Egypt's just on that side. If you keep thinking that Egypt just on the east side, your concepts are wrong. Capital Dominion.
And if you think that it was always a bunch of sand.
Yes.
Because it used to be lush.
Meaning the future proves the past. You just need to know some of the past to recognize what's going on now. When the concepts that the people have that a lot of these things are happening in a vacuum, they are not. People who are governing on Midgard Earth are governing not based on what you think they're governing on. They're governing on a record of ancient Moabite Canaanite history of Saba, codified as Egypt and codified as Jew. It's Hikupta, not Egypt. Hikupta. It ain't Jew, it's Saba. And Saba are Sabians. The Sabians are you, the real people of the land, the Moors. That's the truth. Get over it and start studying your real history and unraveling the confusion of the politics. We just gave you a few keys, that's all. Don't get mad, get wise.
But the point I do want to make is that the end of that particular, at least 2018, 2019, whatever it was, version, remake, what I loved about it was that even though these people, these beings all look different, but they were all under one. They were the elephants, and excuse me. But when they realized what they had in common, they joined forces in spite of their differences and overcame the Skeksis, the few. And that's what the point I'm trying to make about us as we Moors. If we don't stop fighting, if we don't find common ground with one another, with each other, we'll always be in this cycle of wondering why we're not where we used to be. Because we need to come together. We need to overcome our differences and see what we are, embrace our commonality.
Once these people know, see, this is the whole deal. The commonality is that they're all Moors.
Which is
the fact that as long as we keep on allowing the nom de guerre to be presented as legitimate pedigree bloodlines, it will create confusion. It will create civil mortus, and it will support the civil mortus de facto platforms that have been destroying civilization. We must start telling the truth. Now, Joel A. Rogers as an example. This is one of the chapters.
The Negro has more Negro ancestry in aristocratic European families.
Because we are the European family. We're the Aboriginal European families. Now you're dealing Phoenicia, you're dealing Iberia. And by covering that up, they're able to cover up the history here in America. It's all connected. It's all related. There are your coats of arms. Europe. Here are your coats of arms. Europe. Here are your coats of arms. Europe. Here are your coats of arms. Europe. Here's your coats of arms. Europe. Coats of arms. Europe. Coats of arms. Europe. And it goes on and on. You're not told that because they don't want you to know the connection. They don't want you to know that you are the monarchs who were overthrown. However, Diwali came back to restore your nationality and your birthrights, and you need to know it expands much further than a lot of people are telling you. However, he desires for all of us to come back into the constitutional fold of government moral as our forefathers were and our foremothers were, with the honors of our mothers and fathers and respecting all human rights on planet Midgard, etc. Come back and go back to the state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers, because you were the rulers, you were the white rulers who were overthrown. And white is a status, not a complexion. Get over it. While we keep telling you, read in your law book, free white persons. It does not mean Caucasian race, never did. History's been misrepresented to you by people on both sides. So get over that too. And stop being biased and prejudiced and then accusing other people of it. Once you learn some of your real history, it won't be necessary for you to have what you would call low self-esteem. You have no reason to have low self-esteem. You need to be proud of the illustrious history of your ancient mothers and fathers. But you also need to be responsible for us falling away from that illustrious status, dealing with the black code situation, the frauds that have been foisted and imposed upon humanity, and the color code caste system that must be dismantled. Now, take that and roll with it.
Now, here's a question from Jamie Dodger. Is it safe to say that Jamaicans and other Caribbean people are Celtic or Celtic Iberian, Sephardic, Moorish Jews?
Exactly. What do you think you are? That's who you are. Mandinka and Bantu. That's who you are. Stop. Those names of the different territories, most of them aren't even over 150 years old. All of you are Moors. Get over it. Entire Western Hemisphere. All of you verbal linguistic groups, Mandinka, etc., You're all Moors. Get over it. Stop looking at the political territorial jurisdictions that have been created since European hybrid colonial operations in the Western Hemisphere under colonial hegemony. Those political jurisdictions are only artificial constructs on paper. We're all the same people. Get over it, brothers and sisters. Thank you very much.
The
You're home. No matter where you walk, to the north or to the south, you're home. Thank you. Don't let them play that green card crap on you. That's only politics. That's not reality. Get out of that false matrix. It's part of the reason the Moorish Divine and National Movement exists. Read chapter 47 of the Circle 7 Quran. That'll give you your basis. And we're talking civics, not religion. We're talking actual political, geographical, and facts, and political jurisdictional facts, not beliefs. Those are facts.
okay, T-shirt chief says, how are African immigrants classified when they become citizens of the United States?
United States is a private corporation. Any person that allegedly becomes a citizen of the United States becomes stock because it's a private corporation. It's not a country. That's a fact. For those of you who doubt it, do research in corporate operation and corporate bankruptcies. And you'll see that the United States Corporation went bankrupt 2018 and is a private corporation belonging to the Jesuit order of the Bishopric of Rome under the Pope of Rome. It's a private, for-profit, human trafficking corporation that has been presented under pretext as a country since 1861. There you go. The land here that you call country is Morocco. Get over it. It's the Maghreb. And we're not just talking about evening salat. And if you want to key to some of the research, you'll hear Juali say the term, you'll say, you're really Jews. We don't use that name or that term because the Europeans have been using it, meaning it's misrepresented. But we know that we really Saba, or that you call the real Jew. Everybody knows it but our people. But Jew is a cover up for Saba. Keep that in mind. Because really there ain't no such thing as Jew. Really Saba. And for those of you who doubt it, look up Sabian. Sabean. Sometimes they'll substitute the E with an I. You want to look at the linguistic groups? Berber, Bantu, Mandinka. There you go. And all of you are part of the family. From the north to the south. And keep in mind, Jew is not a religion. Jew is, you really come from Ivri, or what you people falsely say Hebrew, which is also false. It's Ivri. It's those who cross the river. This is during the time or before the great earthquake. Those of us who cross the river with the super devere or the dividing of the land between Ham and Cush. So you Cushitic people, all of you, Cushites, etc., are Ibri on this side, meaning those of us of the Cushites and the Moabite Canaanites who crossed the river. For those who came to the Maghreb are Ibri, or what you call cover up, is called Jew. Saba, get over it. Stop lying to yourself. And you got a daggone thing to do with religion. It has to do with what was done. Those who crossed over. Those of you over here, yeah, you're the true Jew. You're the true Saba. Get over it. Got nothing to do with belief. It has to do with the real heirs of the land. So by the hybrids covering up the history to steal your estate, they also have condemned themselves in doing so. So they gained the whole world and have lost their soul. That's what they're dealing with right now. They've gained the entire world, deceived the entire world, and have lost their soul. And a few of them, recognizing what's coming cosmically, are trying to redeem themselves by telling the truth, trying to get on the right side of history. I understand it. And many of those adepts around the world understand exactly what I just now said. A lot of demons among our own are angry about what I just now said. Because they got to go too. They're part of the problem.
I want to read a little bit more about from this.
Share some more.
Yeah,
whatever comes to your mind, because really it's important. Because you already know, it's so much.
And there's a lot of stuff you've said and stuff, but when it's backed up, a lot of times whoever says it depends on.
But also, other people always knew this,
right? But
it's just that this literature ain't been shared with our people. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But they're pointing to party books and get high books, whatever. It's the truth.
Let me see. Okay. As the United States declared its independence, Morocco was aggressively interested in pursuing a dialogue and recognizing this country because it had a vested interest in slave citizens and relatives. They were essentially suing for peace. Although Morocco was eager to establish formal relations, the United States was busy with their own war and other problems. They did not respond. After all normal diplomatic channels had been exhausted, Morocco seized various Americans and their ships and held them for ransom. This got the attention of the Americans, and it worked. A peace treaty was worked out and guaranteed that any U.S. citizen in Morocco would be declared a free American citizen if he presented himself to the U.S. consulate and demonstrated his citizenship.
Now, see the consul venue? That's diversity of nationality in all treaty law around the world. See how important history is, Dr. Naila?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Outside of that venue, you're out of order. Yeah. So therefore, if you're outside the constitutional fold of government, you won't take that position, will you?
Yeah.
So that means you voided your position, don't you? Now you see how the black codes have destroyed our people under the 14th Amendment?
Yep.
Trying to be somebody that they're not and become stock for the United States thinking it's a country. It's all trade, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's agreements and trade, isn't it? Didn't Obama say that treaty between Morocco and the United States is the oldest running treaty in the world?
Yep.
Isn't that apparently the foundation of the politics?
Yes.
So in an international venue, isn't that logical? That the oldest running treaty in the politics of the world is the foundation of your general world's politics, and how come these people don't know about it? Why? Because they thought it was a religion? It's their estate. All of our economics is tied into this.
So a peace treaty was worked out and guaranteed that any U.S. citizen in Morocco would be declared a free American citizen if he presented himself to the U.S. consulate and demonstrated his citizenship. It preserved the rights of all Americans in Morocco. In diplomacy, there is a principle called reciprocity, which means that citizens of different countries will be treated in kind. The U.S. Secretary of State clearly stated in his own handwriting that any Moroccan national would be treated the same as any U.S. citizen in Morocco. In this respect, so-called apocryphal legend of Drew Ali is astonishingly backed up. The above encourages us to seriously consider another story passed down through antiquity. This concerns a meeting that Drew Ali had with President Woodrow Wilson. Noble Drew Ali claimed to have written a letter to President Woodrow Wilson and asked him for the Moroccan flag. The Wilson connection is once again ironic because President Wilson was a known KKK sympathizer who endorsed the racist movie Birth of a Nation, which featured a white supremacist by the name of Ben Cameron. There is an account that Drew Ali actually met with President Wilson and asked for the flag. When Wilson and his people asked him what flag he was talking about, Ali told them it was hidden in their vault. After going to the vault room, all the president's men brought out all sorts of flags, but he told them it was much older. As they dug deeper, they came upon a red flag and said that it was the flag of Morocco. Ali said, Ali is said to have stated, "I am here for the Moorish flag, that which you call a cherry tree." The full account of this alleged meeting is a little suspicious because it indicates that the Moroccan flag was red with a green star. At the time of George Washington, the Moroccan flag that would have been given to the president was only plain red, some say to honor the blood of the Prophet of Islam. This indicates that a black faction may have been embellishing what happened because the green star was only added to the Moroccan flag around or after this meeting with President Wilson was said to have occurred. The ostensible reason for adding a green pentagram was that the international seafaring community had problems with the plain Moroccan flag as it confused mariners who already had their own established use for red flags. The embellishing of the Drew Ali story was not really necessary if they had appealed to a higher truth. A more astute observer would have realized that the green pentagram added to the red flag is even more significant. Accordingly, Morocco adopted the pentagram, which they called the Seal of Suleiman, and colored it green to honor the color of Islam. Without actually observing all of the actual history concerning the bizarre synchronicities involved with the cherry tree, it is very hard to say how much of what occurred with it is intentional. It is quite clear, however, that some outside force was orchestrating a synchronicity that could not easily be explained. Um, this became this will become clear as the story develops. After his alleged meeting with President Wilson, Drew Ali continued his life mission, which was to lead his people out of a mental poverty that had put them at the bottom rung of the ladder. His method to lift them was his own version of Islam. He also noticed that the only successful members of his race were those who imitated the conquerors of his people. There were no there was no great imam or sheikh who taught anything that was indigenous or respectful of their original culture. In this vein, he became their leader and created quite a stir in the world of the Roaring Twenties. If you care to read the newspapers of the day, you will find that Drew Ali commanded such a following that he was closely monitored by the government as a potential power that had to be reckoned with. There were even huge revivals that outdid Christian enterprises. In fact, Drew Ali's meetings included stirring renditions of Muslims, that old time religion borrowing from the trite evangelical Christian ditty you likely heard. The movement was huge. Ali was billed as a healer too and was said to produce miracles in his own right. By most accounts, the man seemed to be humble and unpretentious, although some have tried to defame him. Mostly everyone ignores Drew Ali. In the background of the religious dogma was the Moorish Science Temple, which has also been portrayed as having other names. In the midst of all this excitement and hoopla, there was one very penetrating truth. Drew Ali had a reputation that has surpassed that of any black man in the entire history of America. He was not only dangerous to the powers that be, he was in a position to wield a considerable amount of power. As is typical in any scene of power with Homo sapiens, his lieutenants and adjutants were all poised to make a grab at this incredible power, particularly if he was to suffer incarceration from the authorities or to die. Into this thriving scene of Black America rallying behind Drew Ali, as an international religious leader, entered one of the most intriguing and dubious characters in history, particularly Black Muslim history. This man's name was Wally Fard. I'm gonna stop right there.
Mm-hmm. You know, and you'll begin to see the politics, particularly when you go into the FBI papers and you see the intrigue and the subversion that took place in that whole area of the late 20s. Then you'll recognize why Dwali, one of the counter moves that he made was to adopt a religious affidavit to the Moorish Holy Temple of Science to protect the estates of the Moors or their homes. He set up a trust. People were to put all their stuff in trust to be protected. And of course, during that time, they murdered him because they already knew that that motivation or that momentum was killing the stock market. And this is again why the U.S. corporation company went bankrupt in 28, etc. Same year that he adopted the affidavit. And then you see what took place with Delano Roosevelt in 33, with them using all birth certificates to refund the United States Corporation Company again. And that went bankrupt in 2013. Then they started again and they went bankrupt in 2018. Then all of a sudden, this strange sickness appeared that everybody got a mask on for. If you think this stuff is not tied together, you really need to study history.
And for those who are asking the question, I'm reading from Synchronicity and the Seventh Seal by Peter Moon.
You can show it. It's the cover of that book.
Hold up a little bit. There.
And this is the cover of Nature Knows No Color Line. Now, another point is, it's not that this information is not available to people, it's that people who have interest in keeping our people in servitude and ignorant don't want this kind of information out because it kills a lot of those corporate Negroite, corporate funded 501c3 churches, mosques, and synagogues that actually come under Skull and Bones that's been keeping this fake black code paradigm operative that's been keeping the U.S. stock market alive. That's why they want you to keep calling yourself black and Negro, because it's all stock. It's not really the real people of the land. Real people of the land are Moors. They are the Aboriginal, indigenous people, proper heirs of the North Gate of Maghreb, of Mexam, etc. That's the fact. And all treaties, the oldest treaties, are by your mothers and fathers. So go back to the state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers and enforce the treaties, i.e., thus the constitutional obligations that the hybrid Europeans have to those treaties, etc., and to the Republican form of government set forth via that Constitution enforcing the treaties. Now that's a fact. Get to work, y'all. Stop pretending you don't know.
Here's a question.
And keep in mind, while our people have been playing games, the Whigamores have been fighting among each other over your estate. They're just hiding behind the Democratic and Republican Party. They're the Whigamores. They got to wear wigs, but you don't. Because you got them antennas.
So, here's a question. Antoine Darrell says, "It's respect. I'm originally from Bermuda, but now living in England. Do you know anything about the GOM bays? GOM-BEY apostrophe S. Goom bays?
The Bombays.
It's Goom with a G.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Go back to the Picts, the Moors, and the Dubs. And when you're looking at Ingla land, you know you're still home. You're looking at Iberia. And when you're looking at the islands, you're looking at the same. All of it's yours. You need to understand that. Same like when those of you in the islands and you're talking about the Maroons, still talking about Moors. The Maroons are Moors. Get over it. They're just simply brothers and sisters among the island people who try to preserve and keep the culture.
Here's a question. Why don't, quote unquote, they reveal that it was the Moorish womb men who defeated the Brits in the Revolutionary War?
Here we go. Aren't we back to Moorish history? Your connection to the land. Act like you know. They just hide it by calling us Indians. None of it's a secret. It's just that people need to know the difference between the nom de guerre that were used to separate us from each other, and the different territorial names and tribal names which were used or emphasized to make us think that we're different people when we're just simply the same people of different territories, tribes of nations. Tribes are simply no different than you would call the different nation territories or what you would call the states territories. You look at the tribes in the same perspective because the state territorial jurisdictions were based on tribal rules. It's a duplication and a reflection of the same. And so when you look into Whigamores, and you're looking at the Whigamore conscience Whigs and the Cotton Whigs, i.e. the Republican Party and Democratic Party, just look at the Honesty Confederation, and then look at the Powhatan Confederation, etc. It's just simply a copy of what was already here.
I think the interesting point with regard to the D's and the R's is that when you, in terms of, I think a lot of folks have to see in this short 100 days what those who did actually go out and cast a ballot for, what they did is probably it's very apparent. But I don't think as many realize, not maybe the ones here in this, we're very astute here on this chat, but I don't know if the masses realize that Mr. T, we'll just call him Mr. T. So he wasn't really, like you said, definitely wasn't on the D side, and the R's didn't respect him because he was, a lot of them were just as involved in the mess as the D's. So he came for a totally different, like you always said, he was chosen or
he was
appointed, assigned, and so forth.
The corporation is dead.
Right. Who assigned him?
You can look at it from a perspective of divine fate. And that's included on a secondary level with generals and admirals who have been operatively constructing a plan to counter the operations of the Roman Curia operations that took place with the coup d'etat of 1861, March the 27th, with the overthrow of the Lincoln administration to undermine the republic. Now, you know, like you hear Dr. Nail about Q and QAnon that they're talking about
17.
Today? Do you know that started during the Lincoln administration and not recently the way people think it is?
Really?
That started during the Lincoln administration. It was just reactivated by Mr. T.
Okay.
That's the truth. The more you know about the real history, it's not only going to shock you, but you need to, it's like this. For people to ignore what's going on is to ignore their economic and political fate. And you're not going to hide from this because the dark priesthood is willing to sacrifice all of you to maintain power. So you think that because you're not involved, that you're not involved, you got a wrong thing coming. All you're going to do is make yourself easier grass to cut by ignoring it. I suggest that every man, woman, and child get involved with confessing their own, because what you don't confess, they plan to steal and liquidate, and then remove you so that you can make no claim. That's honestly what their missionary operations are right now, politically. And if you think that ignoring these matters gets you out of it, I'm not even going to argue with you. You will find out soon enough, and you're not going to go to no new generation with this crap going on, thinking that it's not going to become a reality for you, because you're if you don't die tomorrow, you'll live through this. You're going to live through what's coming. That's a guarantee. You're not going to ignore it safely. Let's put it that way.
I think I heard the pastor that was talking to Greg saying something like it was akin to paying the hitman to kill you last. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's basically what it is. That's basically kind of what it is. Those who ignore what's going on now is ignoring it at their peril. You know, I'm not condemning people. I'm just observing truth. People are afraid because in their heart of hearts they know that Romans are cold-blooded murderers, and Rome has always done things to undermine anything that deals with justice. Or they keep crucifying Jesus over and over again. Jesus means justice, and so they hide and they think that because they won't take a stand or position of opposition to the corruption, that the corruptors won't sacrifice them. They're just simply easier food. Because Rome is ruthless. You better believe they're ruthless. And not because I say so, they're going to prove it to you. They've been proving it for these last 3 years. And if you notice that everything they've been doing has been more and more blatant relative to censoring you, cutting you off in the economics, hurting people literally, bluntly in the street, no justice, no justice, no justice, and you haven't figured out yet that they're not your friend and that they're not your government, that they're the enemy of humanity and the enemy of constitutions and treaties. We don't have to keep telling you because they're going to prove it to you. And if you don't take a position, they're going to eliminate you physically and still steal all your stuff. You think you don't rock the boat and they're not going to take your stuff. Well, you got another thought coming because they intend to sacrifice it. And the more blind you pretend to be, the easier it's for them to eliminate you physically and economically, because that's what their intention is. That's what the pattern is. And keep in mind, for those of you who know the real politics and have done research on corporations, defunct corporations in recent years, you'll find among them the United States Corporation. Now, what they're trying to do is extinguish many of the people because they stole all the pension plans, all of them. All of them. And rather than acknowledge that that's why they're putting elderly in nursing homes to kill them off under the guise of some secret germ type thing, well, it's not accidental because they've stolen all their retirement funds. And they know that when these people finally figure out what they've been doing, like Bush Sr. said, they might lynch them from the nearest pole. That include all them corner store persons who keep claiming to love Jesus, who've been paid off to keep these people passive while they've been getting raped, while they've been getting skull and bone kickbacks, 501c3s that Lyndon Baines Johnson set up. Don't think that the assassination of Kennedy is not connected to this, because that is too.
There is I can't really say what it is, but but there's something on the flash drive that I recently put on in the under House of Reawakening Minds folder that is very, very interesting. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
The kid.
Yes.
And I can't get this, but I put it there.
Yeah.
And they really need, if you don't have a new.
Yeah. You know, this is the other thing, Dr. Naila. People have been thinking that the history and the chronology of the activities have been in a vacuum. The more you understand that the past is tied to the present. cognitely tied to the present, not circumstantially tied to the present, cognitely tied to the present. And so are all political activities. Therefore, it's important for you to know the history. So we're sharing with you some of it, i.e., the truth about American politics. Thus, you must know about the Whig Party, because your concepts will be wrong if you don't. And you can easily be misled by persons who are misrepresenting, as they have been, the political platforms operating at North America. And the more you know about this, the more you'll know their motives to have hidden this information and why. But then you also, if you care about your family and yourselves, you start taking responsibility and start getting yourself a little bit more competent than you have been in your social political affairs. Because it's not dancing around you just because you've been ignoring it. Because keep in mind, while you're talking politics, you're still talking about spiritual warfare too. Because that's what's going on. So if you think that they're separate because somebody told you that, it will be to your peril to keep entertaining that state of mind.
Here's a Patrick says that's a fact. It's because how did Chief Joseph get a cuneiform tablet that translated to Assyrian landy?
Still here. Everything is connected. See, this is the whole deal. People got to stop disconnecting these things. They've presented history in a disconnected vacuum type format when it's all tied together. The present proves the past. You can call prophecy if you want to. It's just that you got to know code words that they've used to hide the history. And also the motive of changing names or using transliterations of names so that you don't trace yourself back to yourself.
I'm seeing some stuff in the chat that's very disturbing tonight, and I'm going to try to be cool. That's why we can't get anywhere. Like I said,
Well, it's what it is.
Fighting. Disrespect.
It's what it is.
Disrespect.
It's going to be there. It's going to be there.
Disrespect.
Remember, this is what Drawley said. It'll be only a handful. You know why? Because the darkness. Why did we fall? Is it not been because of dark spirits? Has it not been because of treason? Is it not what the world is suffering in all governments today? Treasonous activities? Have all of the governments been so corrupt that they've been robbing the people? That's indeed the fact, isn't it? Has it not been that many of the platforms for jobs of people and organizations have been constructed for the very purpose of maintaining the corruption or protecting the corruption and protecting people's images who have supported the corruption? And isn't it interesting that when you start telling the truth, it's sort of like you're shining a light on people who otherwise have a different image to the people. And once the people start looking at this information, it exposes a lot of people on all sides. And when the light shines on some people, they get upset because some people aren't who they've been presenting themselves to be. The deal of it is that knowledge empowers people that were otherwise politically and socially disempowered or disenfranchised because they recognize that their concepts have been wrong, and that a lot of our lack of unity and a lot of our lack of progress has been because we've been dealing with improper or false or misleading information. And once people start recognizing that a lot of the schisms that exist among our people is because they haven't known the real history, and also is that they suspected that the enemy was just hybrid Europeans, not knowing that the enemies were among our own.
Yep.
And I always tell, like I've always said to people, Dr. Naila, don't accept what I say, do some research and prove it wrong. And in the process, you'll become a scholar. But you'll also uncover a lot of enemies that are right around you. But if you love your children and you love your family, you're going to deal with the truth as you find it. And you will find it. If you seek the truth will find you. It will. But it's always been there. And in spite, the other interesting thing, Dr. Naila, even though the hybrid Europeans and Constantinians, under the guise of Christianity, have been burning books, hiding history, restricting, blocking, sanctioning, demonetizing, confiscating people's accounts, censoring people, there's still enough history and information available to liberate anybody who really wants to be mentally liberated. And of course, before you can help liberate people politically, they must be liberated mentally. Know you the truth, and the truth will help set you free from fake government, fake religion, fake organizations, and fake institutions, i.e., colored structures. That's a fact. To understand, when you start exposing the platform of the cards that have been used by the corrupt dark priesthood, they get angry quickly and they send their trolls out. You're not telling the truth. They made that up. Well, do some research for yourself. We're just giving you some points of reference. And as you learn the truth, some of it's going to make you angry. Some of it's going to make you emotional. But I suggest don't do either.